All right, friends, back again with CABAL. How are we? How are we doing? We'll go fast with this one because I know we're a little late here. Tried to throw this one in last minute, and of course, stuff catches up with you. No beard. Yeah, I guess you didn't see the Christmas one. We've got I got it trimmed off on Tuesday morning, Tuesday or Wednesday morning. This one we don't have as much to talk about. We don't have as much to talk about. We're going to talk about some speculation, but we don't have as much to talk about because we did talk about some things yesterday at Christmas. And let's be honest, guys, a lot of this stuff is a waiting game. But I did want to use the opportunity to follow up on some of our history, right? Some of the history lesson that we didn't finish on the United States. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about some other interesting things when it comes to esoteric lore, some nature, some aspects of the aliens, right? The aliens. Everyone wants to know about the aliens. So first off, we're gonna talk about the wine as we always do. Okay. Um, I would say at this point we're about halfway through Italy. We're about halfway through Italy on the wine front. Maybe a little bit more. Maybe a little bit more. We've almost tackled all of central Italy. We haven't done Tuscany, and we're going to go back to Tuscany. We're kind of doing a loop here, so I'll show you on the map. We're doing a little loop. So today we're doing Friuli, Venezia Giulia. So let me go back here. So we have Italy here, right? So we've done this. We've done Sardinia, Sicily, hit our way through the south, got up through Rome, went up around into Lambrusco, hit Prosecco, and now we're gonna. So now you look at the map here. So we, Lambrusco to Prosecco, and now we're zooming all the way over here to Friuli. Okay, this is on the border lands with Slovenia and Austria. Now this is interesting because there are local varietals here in Friuli. Friuli produces the most kind of international, refreshing white wine. I have been to Montepulciano actually. Oh, I haven't gotten to Montepulciano. No. I haven't gotten to it. I've got really good stuff. I've got some really fun stuff for Tuscany I bought already, which I'm looking forward to getting to with you guys. Oh, we did Montepulciano d'Abruzzo for sure. Just pretty basic wine, it's totally serviceable, but pretty basic. Nothing too special about it. So we're gonna hit Friuli, and then we're gonna hit over to Trentino Alto Adige, and then we're going to hit Verona, right? Valpolicella, Amarone, Bardolino. And then we're going to shoot back down to Tuscany, okay? And then we'll go up and we'll hit Franciacorta and the Northwest. Well, guys, look, there's nothing wrong with Montepulciano. Nothing wrong with it. It's on a very expensive wine, and there's nothing wrong with a non-expensive wine. You want that for most nights. You want a wine that's just good with food and is fine and costs under $15, and that's a Montepulciano d'Abruzzo. But I'm trying to be interesting here for you guys, so I'm hitting it all. So Friuli is an interesting area. Okay, it's an interesting area because it is carved up really between Slovenia and Italy. So you can see Slovenia is right here. Of course, this used to be part of Italy, certainly at various points of history, and it also used to be part of Austria-Hungary. So you have this area, you have Slovenia, you have Austria, which is like right here, and you have Italy. But the varieties that you mostly have are French, which is interesting because it became a place that really fell prey to international varietals. So you have a lot of French varietals here. And the two biggest ones for the white wines, which is what I'm focusing on, they do Cabernet Franc here. I didn't bother trying to get it. I probably should have gotten a Friuliano, some other whites. But I'm just going to tell you guys, whenever I've dealt with Friuli, the two grapes that really stand out here in terms of what you're going to drink are going to be usually Pinot Grigio and Sauvignon Blanc. So we're going to try those two out. So I do have Italian ancestors, but I have not really gotten any of the DNA, even though it's on my mother's side, my mother's mother. I don't have any of the DNA according to Ancestry. I'm all the Anglo stuff, Anglo-French kind of things won out, I guess you could say. So look right here. All right, so we have the Sauvignon Blanc. I'm gonna try to get the color right here. Look at the difference. Okay, look at the difference between this. You can really see how Pinot Grigio, which means gray Pinot, right? Pinot Noir, black Pinot, Pinot Blanc, white Pinot. Okay, Pinot Pinot Blanc you don't see as much. Pinot Grigio is considered a white grape, but it's really not. It's really not, which is why it's very often used for. It's like very pink. It's very pink. It's pinkish gray. It's kind of in between. It's a mutation in between Pinot Noir and Pinot Blanc. And so that's why they use this one a lot for orange wine, because in fact they use Sauvignon Blanc a lot too. And Friuli is a very big region of experimenting with orange wine. But they do that because Pinot Grigio has quite a bit of skin for a white wine, so to speak. So you get a lot more flavor. So let's try it out. I'm gonna do the Sauvignon Blanc first. And it's really nice. Now it's interesting. It doesn't have as much. Looks like there's some wax or something in here. Look, Will, you gotta admit, I look a lot more handsome right now than I looked before. I looked homeless. My wife was totally okay with it. She was okay with it. She knew I was doing it for spiritual purposes. I had to stick it out through the solstice. But after the solstice, it was like, all right, deal's over. And really, I have to admit, we were taking pictures with the baby, and it's like, I didn't look good, man. I didn't look good. I looked like I'd been on like an Arctic mission, and it was not sexy. It wasn't sexy. There's a certain magic to it, maybe, but it wasn't sexy. Homeless is the new handsome, I guess so. It's like I look so much better. It's actually not even the beard. The beard maybe could have been okay. It was the hair up here when it gets out and looks ridiculous. Yeah, now I can pass for a Biden supporter. So this is good. This is good. We talked about the Sauvignon Blanc, right? We've talked about this, but it's not doesn't have too much of the cat piss kind of thing that the pyrazine that you get with Sauvignon Blanc, just a little bit. It's actually very refreshing. To say it's very refreshing. It's maybe a little thin, but what's the percentage on this one? 13%. Yeah. I don't want it to be too heavy, right? I don't necessarily like a refreshing white wine to be super heavy. You almost want it to be a little watery. So I'm okay with it. But guys, I'm not in general huge on Sauvignon Blanc. I'm a little bit better with the ones from France, and so we're gonna try that out. White Bordeaux's are half Sauvignon Blanc. I kind of like that Semillon Sauvignon Blanc mix. Let's try the Pinot Grigio. More interested in this one. I like them both. Now, this one has a nose on it. It's a real, ooh, nice. See, it almost smells like a rosé. And actually, sometimes they make what are kind of considered to be rosés from Pinot Grigio, because like I said, guys, it's really a mix. It's really a mix between red and white. If we're being technical here, it's a gray grape, not a red or white grape. All right, I was checking here. You know what I was checking? I was checking to see if it said white wine, because this has that little light cherry flavor that you get from rosés. This wine tastes like a hybrid between. It has so much of rosé in it. I don't think I'm going to be a sommelier, and here's why. There's two reasons why I'm not going to be a sommelier. And actually, I have to tell you guys a little bit more about this area. But the reason I'm not going to become a sommelier is twofold. The first reason, and this is maybe a technical point, is I'm not good at opening wine. Like, in the sense that I'm messy, I'm not good on presentation. Presentation is not my strong suit with food. I don't like I'm not good at it. It's not my gift. Also, uh, look, it's no offense to this industry, and it could just be my, maybe my palate. I've gotten tested, and my palate is above average, but I'm not like I'm a taster, as they call it, but I'm not a super taster. I don't have, um, you have to make up a lot of stuff in my perspective. You have to get really overly intellectual sometimes with these wines, and it's at one hand like kind of cool, and you sort of like when somebody does that as a consumer because it gives you something to kind of draw your attention towards. Like, yeah, I can see that, but it feels like too much BSing for me, and maybe I'm just not, and maybe my palate just isn't good enough to detect all that stuff consistently. Sometimes it's like a flavor is going to be so obvious to me, and I find it strange that it's not emphasized more by sommeliers. At other times, I feel like we get like gooseberry, red apple. Um, yeah, someone once described a wine to me as an open chocolate pudding container at the bottom of a locker. Someone actually did that to me, and they were serious. They were serious. Another one was like an apple left in an old cedar chest. Kind of like, I guess it's kind of imaginative, but yeah, I just, I don't know. So what I would be more likely to do is business related stuff with wine. I'm just gonna tell you guys this because it's an idea I've had, and it's one of the things, frankly, part of wine school. I'm doing this for myself. I'm doing it for you. But I like to attack multiple objectives. This is fun. You guys enjoy it, right? It's a little bit different. It's a good opportunity for me to, revisit a lot of different wines around the world, right? Like I was back at school myself, and um, I would never call myself a foodie. I would never call myself a foodie, but I did like going to nice restaurants in New York. I'm a restaurant cuck. I wouldn't call myself a foodie, but I do see in the future that I could brand something. I could brand some sort of wine thing. I don't think I want to produce. I think it's too much of a headache to do that, and I don't have the precision to do that. Um, Kind of see one of my kids doing it, but I think my next son, my wife and I both think this, that our son, which I think will be our next kid, is going to be Space Force. We actually think that. We really both think that very strongly. I told her that the other day, and she's like, "No, that's what I like. I know that he's gonna be Space Force." Like, wow, you think it? You feel that too? So, but whatever. We'll see. They can do what they want. They can do what they want. But I definitely see myself doing something in the wine industry because, and this, but maybe not. It just opens up my options. I don't know. You have to have it divine. I don't know the secrets, but I knew this was going to be a daughter. I knew it from the very beginning. I'd had dreams of it beforehand, and so it wasn't a surprise to me when it came out that it was a daughter. But I also feel very strongly the next one's going to be a son. So we'll see. We'll see. This one's so easy, guys. We're really blessed. It's so easy. But I have to tell you guys something actually, and this will be a good segue. Uh, it'll be a good segue. I guess the last thing I have to make a comment about this area. Largest international white wine exportation in Italy, and the area is near the Adriatic, but also not so cold, not so far north. If you get a little bit further north of this, it becomes like marginal wine territory. Area used to be underground. It's got some very interesting sandstone, marl soil composition as a result of that. Uh, Overall, pretty great wine area. There's stuff in Austria nearby here that does it. There's Slovenia and there's Italy mostly. So anyway, um, but I wanted to say this about the kid. All right, about the kid stuff. This is a good segue for our talk today because I wanted to talk a little bit about just this, like the divide. Guys, this divide, and I'm not impatient, and I think that maybe to a certain extent, this is just the way it has to go down. It's just the way it has to go down, guys. But people are. I mean, it's kind of like the white hats are going to have to hurry up if they're going to save people. They're going to have to hurry up. There are a lot of people who are asleep, and there's different levels of asleep, right? There are different levels of being asleep. But I have to tell you guys, I don't want to go so far as to say it's painful. I think I've processed it enough at this point that it's not really painful anymore. I think I processed it enough at this point that it's not painful to know this. But I think everybody here's got some family, if not immediate, then 1 degree removed from immediate, that's just getting fucking obliterated by this thing, right? They're gonna get taken out. When I say taken out, I don't mean like they're in the cabal and they're gonna get taken out. I mean that they are falling for the Faustian bargain. Okay, I have a relative who is pregnant, and okay, I told you guys this. Like, we did everything full natural. The only intervention we did, and I'm still like, I wouldn't say I'm kicking myself. I think I did the best I could under the circumstances, or whatever. There's no point dwelling on it. But we did the vitamin K shot versus oral. It was it was preservative free. I'm not happy that we did that, but I know that without the preservatives, it's not going to be. It's not the worst thing in the world, right? Let's just say I didn't kill my daughter, all right, with that, and it was a difficult decision. That's the most intervention we had, the max intervention we had. Okay, everything else, zero intervention whatsoever. Everything's done natural. No drugs, no drug with the delivery. Baby gets nothing after that. And I have a relative who's doing the complete opposite. Okay, they're going to get an epidural. They are, if not an epidural, a cesarean. They've already kind of like given up. They don't want to have any sort of agency. My wife was like doing exercises every day. When the baby wasn't in perfect position, she was practicing. She was on like that big fucking whatever ball, Boso ball or whatever, trying to get in position. Going to see a chiropractor to get her pelvis in alignment. It's easy birth. I mean, it was an extra easy birth, but I still think it would have been an easy birth regardless. And this relative is the complete opposite. Complete opposite. Really trying to outsource every decision possible to the doctor, to the medical field. But here's the thing. Not going to breastfeed, right? And it goes even further than that, because lining up to try to get the vaccine while she's pregnant. Okay, wants to be in the first ones to get the vaccine when she's pregnant. And guys, it's just like, it's tragic. It's tragic. And we've made some mention, but it falls on deaf ears. It falls on deaf ears. And look, fingers crossed that despite all this stuff, baby's going to be okay. I hope so. I hope so. I don't want bad things to happen because of this path, but this is a recipe for disaster. It's an absolute recipe for disaster. Even other people in my family who are not like us, okay, not woke like us, okay, not woke like we are woke, right? They're like, I'm not. They're not rushing into this stuff, and at the very least, they are not about to try to get this thing while they're pregnant, right? That's what I mean. There's different levels of this stuff, and it's really sad. And this is, I want to make this as a point. There's 2 points here I want to make. The first is that we are really in a great filtering here. And, all these little like spiritual communities, we're talking for a while about, you're going to leave your actual families and find your soul families. And I was always like, this stuff sounds gay. It sounds gay and stupid. And I did not even really completely understand what it meant. But it was just like, you have your family, and like, what do you mean? You're going to find your soul family. But I kind of get it a bit more now. I still don't like the way they said it. I still think it's gay and stupid. But I get it a bit more now, in the sense that we are making independent decisions absent of our families, and the impact of those decisions, it's kind of like, as our families and us maybe go separate directions, which is happening to people, that we are finding new people. Like, I made a comment yesterday about how, I don't want to do the COVID cabal too long because we're all with our families. And some of you guys really, made the point like, well, this is like a family. And, it's like, it's actually, there's some kind of truth to that, right? Those of you who are on here on a regular basis, there's a little bit of like a family kind of thing here. Like, we're all in this together. We understand each other. And I love when you guys comment, by the way. I don't always, because I can't read everything at the time because I sometimes will lose my train of thought, as you've noticed. But I do read the comments. And I appreciate the comments. So I love you guys. I do think of you guys as an extended soul family. We all found each other here for a reason. So there is some truth to this stuff, and it's just kind of acceptance that it's going to happen. I was telling my mom about it. My mom is like, nothing you say to them is going to make a difference. Nothing you say to them is going to make a difference, and that's just the way it is. And you have to accept that. And she's right. And that would have been very hard for me a year ago. Whereas now it's just this kind of, it's like you get this kind of twinge of like, every now and then you get this twinge like, should I feel guilty? Should I not be like really trying to push it? But it's like, you know what? No, I shouldn't be trying to push it. This is their choice. And I think we all have people like this. They are making their choice, and we have to allow them to make their choice. I love all you guys. You have to allow them to make their choice. That's just the way it is. I mean, the evidence is in their face. There are relatives. This is not a relative that's been like, my immediate family has all done very minimal intervention stuff, and they've had great outcomes. This is somebody who doesn't, no one wants to tell them the truth too much because they don't take well to it. So whatever. That's just the way it is. Love is giving them free will. It's exactly right. Love is giving them free will. And, and also, like, I gotta say, it's like, it's also the men, right? Her husband, good guy, like, but he's not doing his thing, right? As the father, I've actually thought like maybe I'd reach out to him, but you know what? It's like, your job is to protect your child. That's it. Your job is to protect your child. And so if you can't stand up to your wife, or you don't feel like looking into it because it's inconvenient, you want to go travel again. Someone in my DMs asked me this, and this is not anything about them. He's on our page with these things, but he was saying like, well, what if I can't travel if I don't take the vaccine? I said, what if somebody told you you can't travel unless you cut off your dick? Like seriously, you can't travel unless you cut off your penis. Then we'll let you travel. Would you travel? The answer is no. But you should be thinking of that decision when it comes to anything that violates your body. A vaccine that affects your DNA, that is being forced upon you by a corporation, is a violation of your body. So what do? Well, you say fuck off. You say fuck off is what you do. And you say that over and over again, and you make other people say it, and you spread the truth, and then the company has to backtrack. Yeah, my body, my fucking choice. That's the funny thing. All the pro-life people, my body, my choice. Well, whatever. But it's actually not their choice. They're being programmed. They're being remote programmed. Some of them are demons, actually, and other ones are just brainwashed. So anyway, I wanted to say that piece because ever since, I actually think that we have this sort of interesting situation. I think it's really interesting that the solstice took place, I believe, at a half moon, right? And it's really felt to me like the solstice, in a certain sense, has been the week around it in each direction. So it's felt like since the new moon on the 14th, going to the full moon on the 29th, we're looking at this sort of like, and Paul talked about this in his recent newsletter, Paul Publisher, but I almost went down the wrong pipe. It feels like the full moon on the 29th is kind of like our goodbye, our real goodbye. Like, we're in Aquarius right now, but we're sort of drifting out. And I felt since the new moon on the 14th, I felt like, yeah, this is done. And so we have this sort of 2-week transition, right? Salmon, all about getting in the wrong hole, right? I have to make a little side point here. I don't get anal. It's not really my thing. I've done it. Not my thing. Not my thing. I don't. Some guys get really obsessed with it, but it was kind of gross. Kind of gross, honestly. It's kind of gross. I don't know. That's a psyop, guys. That's a psyop. But whatever. Whatever. Some girls actually love it too, which is crazy. So they love it. It's crazy. Most don't, but there's like a subset that just like. Anyway, whatever. Digression. So anyway, I feel like we're really the final kind of goodbye is on the 29th. So let's use that as a springboard here. Okay, let's use that as a springboard. I hope you're not eating ass. It's another thing, related issue, but let's use this as a springboard here. Okay, because we had Washington. Pizza is my favorite. That's not a. By the way, I'm not a pita, right? I'm not a pita. I actually genuinely real pizza, not like the code word pizza. I actually like. I hate that they did that. Why they've ruined that from my favorite food? I can't like say I like my favorite food now. You can't actually say you like any Italian food because they're always using Italian food. I can't say I like pasta. I can't say that. I'm all American. I like hot dogs. I can't say that. But look, Washington crossed the Delaware, guys. Washington crossed the Delaware, and we have that multiple confirmation. Okay, we had Magenta talking about it. We had multiple Q posts referencing it with pretty good deltas. We had what else do we have with it? We had Linwood mentioning it. We had Ron Code Monkey mentioning it. But we also had, and I think this is probably the most interesting one, is this happened, I think, today. We had Ezra Cohen Watwick, right? Remember Watwick? Remember our guy, Ezra, who is now Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence, who is agglomerating all of the different military intelligence, basically, to be sent to Miller. Watwick put out he retweeted the sort of Battle of Trenton Christmas night attack. Okay. And it feels different, guys. It feels different. I know that there are people here who are tired of waiting. I know that people are tired of waiting. I know it. I get it. Dude, we're all tired of it. We're all tired of it. It's not. There's really just this sense of fatigue with dealing with the bullshit. It's like we just do not want to inhabit. We don't want to inhabit it. We don't want to inhabit this sort of cabal world anymore. We've chosen to not be in it. We've chosen it. And we just want to see the end of it. But yeah, we're at war. That's how it works. And we have to accept that we're at war and that's how it works. And Trump never revealed his hand. He hasn't revealed his hand yet. Rudy mentioned that it's all going to come out next week. Okay. We have a lot of people really saying it's coming out. They're really, really saying it's coming out. And they're giving some firm deadlines on it. And if we can look at some sort of imagery with this stuff, okay, we have Christmas is the first day of Christmas, okay, Trump making Christmas great again, first day of Christmas, and there's 12 days of Christmas, and when does Christmas end? Christmas ends on Epiphany, January 6th, which is the day that the Electoral College votes, Congress certifies the Electoral College votes, okay? So, very interesting. I think we're all at the point where we feel the momentum. No doubt we feel the momentum. And I tell you guys, the energy was different. There is some serious stuff going on right now. There's military craft flying around everywhere. There's been outages in the Southeast. That bomb was, we don't know exactly what was going on here, but it seems very likely that it was connected to AT&T and the NSA and the Dragnet. And whether that was the cover for some, false flag attacks elsewhere in Miami, maybe that wasn't even related to the cabal. there was that shooting. And then there was the what was it? What was that? What was I trying to say? Oh, or was it connected to the fact that there's the election going on in Georgia? What's it all connected to? We don't know what's going on. I don't think that there has been more. Yeah, I've heard that as well with the Justice Roberts Photoshop. But he did, that image is Photoshop, but he did have the mark. And so it's one of these things where you create a lie to spread attention to a truth, right? And that's done a lot. That's a normal part of I guess you could say psychological operations, right? Took out underground cables in Nashville, right? Salmon, if you put 20K in Biden and made two pounds, that would be funny. £2 profit. That's good. So look. Something's going on, and the disinfo has never been heavier. It's actually never been heavier than we were experiencing right now, which will bring us to the one thing that I think everybody's trying to. So cables. So there was a thread that was back in September that talked about this, but there's certain data collection centers around the U.S. for the NSA, and they're near like telecom buildings, and they have to be near also a railroad, a rail yard. And Nashville fits it, right? Nashville is one of those ones. So it's very clear that something happened with this. Some people are saying that it was meant to disrupt a presidential messaging test. I don't know. It seems a little bit small ball as far as I'm concerned, because if it's just a test, who cares, right? We don't know. I mean, I think that we just have to acknowledge we don't know. We don't know, and it's okay. We don't know. I'm actually okay with not knowing. I'm okay with not knowing as long as I see progress. Yeah, that's right. Bill Binney, that's right. I'm okay with not knowing, because if we don't know, then nobody knows. But there is one thing here. There's one thing here that is everybody's got on the mind, and that's Mike Pence. We've been talking about this. You guys know we've been talking about this stuff. We've been talking about Mike Pence. What's the story with Mike Pence? Well, yeah, that's it, right? We don't know. We don't know. And here's the thing about Pence. Pence, there's so many different theories going around about Pence. Okay? Pence is leaving the country on the 6th. I get some odd energy from him. He's a little bit too much. I'm gonna do the job. People said that he was arrested for a coup attempt. He was put in prison. The clone was out for a while. I've heard that the clone's still out there. I've heard he's back. He made a deal. I've heard a lot of things. I've heard a lot of things about Pence. I don't know if they're true or not. I don't know if they're true. There's a lot of people who have said that Pence is going to not be vice president, and that JFK Jr. is going to be vice president. I don't know. Here's the thing that we do know about Pence, okay? And this includes we had the Bush funeral letters, right? Well, I want to make a point here. If he's going to Trump, all right, I want to make a point here. This is important. Trump knows whether Pence is good or not, okay? I don't want to go too crazy with this stuff, but if Trump is letting Pence go forward with this sort of, preside over Congress option, okay? If he's letting it go forward, then there's two reasons for it. The first reason is because he trusts Pence. The second reason is that he wants Pence to also go, and that has to happen for Pence to go. So those are the two reasons that he would do it. Trump's not stupid. Trump knows. He knows these things. He knows these things. They have the NSA has everything, guys. That is not necessarily admissible in court, but the military knows it. Trump knows it. So Pence has been kept around. He's been kept around for a reason. Now, what we don't know What we don't know is whether or not Pence is like a double agent. Okay, he's the most undercover individual in all this stuff because he's undercover for one side or another. I promise you that. Pence is either cabal who's flipped for good, right? Or he's pretending to be good and he's cabal. That's it. That's it. I mean, he is. Yeah, VP has resigned. Spiro Agnew, Nixon's VP, resigned, which is why when Nixon resigned a little bit later, it went to the Speaker of the House, Ford, Gerald Ford. So yeah, VP can resign. We don't know, guys. We don't know, but it is very interesting, isn't it? And we said this before on COVID Cabal. It seems a little too perfect. When people are saying Pence card, Pence can save everything, I was like, there's no fucking way that Pence is going to save everything. Now, the question is, will Pence do his duty? But Pence, like, intervening to save the ticket, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. So what's going to happen on the 6th is anybody's guess, but there's going to be a big rally there for a reason. And guys, I have to say, I might be down there in the end. I'm starting to, the spirit's starting to move me. The spirit's starting to move me to go down to DC on the 6th. The baby's been really easy. By that point, it'll be past the 2-week period with my wife. So I think I might go down to DC. I think I might go down, but we'll see. I'll confirm that with you guys. I have to still try to figure out the logistics, how I'm gonna manage that stuff. I agree with you guys that the JFK Jr. stuff doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Although I will say that his death was obviously, the story of his death is bullshit. Obviously, the story of his death is bullshit. There's just like no doubt about that. I mean, but the family were the ones who were trying to cover it up, and that's very interesting, isn't it? People have said that that's, they've had all sorts of theories about that, but maybe he has gone undercover, and maybe that is part of the whole thing, right? Maybe Cabal killed him, but why would they be trying to cover it up? They don't want the Cabal to kill anybody else. It's all possible. Maybe he faked his own death. Maybe Palladians took care of him. Who knows? Who knows? We don't know this stuff, but I can tell you this. So, Will, this is a good point. The JFK Jr. stuff makes no logical sense, and I would not go so far as to say I'm a believer. On the other hand, it is pretty crazy to think, I mean, I suppose you could believe that Pence is cabal and that he's been undercover and he's do these things, but I will agree that the energy around Pence isn't really there, right? The energy around Pence isn't really there, and you don't really feel like he's part of the new world. You don't really feel that. You kind of feel like he's part of the old system. But I don't know, Newt Gingrich was part of the old system. I don't know. I don't know the answer to this. I don't know the answer to it. We're going to find out what happens with these things. But I will say this. And this is the one thing I will confirm, okay? I will confirm this, is that if Pence goes, JFK Jr. arrives. If Pence goes, JFK Jr. arrives. Because there have been too many things going around about JFK Jr. taking the VP slot. There's been too much going around about it. And I don't know. So maybe Penn stays, but I feel that, because I was always like, how would JFK Jr. become vice president? And now we have a situation here. Where he could potentially be taking the state. Well, this is the thing, Salman, is that they never did an autopsy on the body. We don't know what was inside that plane. We don't know what was inside the plane. We actually don't. You can look at the autopsy stuff with that. The family wanted the remains cremated immediately. The whole plane crash thing was, the story about how the plane crashed, so to speak, changed multiple times. They also talked about, I know he was an inexperienced pilot. All this stuff came out like afterwards. They said all these things, about how there was no visibility. There was visibility. he wasn't an inexperienced pilot, but he was also not so experienced that he was in that perfect range, actually, where you're very cautious. You know how to fly, but you're cautious. Yeah, exactly, Sam. They never lie. So I could be wrong. I could be wrong. That's a good question here. Is this the real Salmon? I'm hearing Salmon. I'm hearing Salmon put money on Biden here. What's going on? What's going on? Has Salmon been infested with a vril? Is this the real Salmon? So we're gonna see. But if Pence has to resign, I don't know Stedman with an A. This is the most common thing. Everybody spells my name with an A. Salmon took the vaccine. Now he's a cyborg. Salmon is no longer our Salmon. So, look, I don't know what's going to happen with it, but if Pence turns out to backstab, and I do think we're going to have a big twist, guys. I feel like we're going to have a big twist to this. Then I do think we see JFK. I do think we see JFK. If Pence doesn't backstab, there's no JFK Jr. Pence doesn't backstab, there's no JFK Jr. It doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. So let's go back to some of these history things. So, I'm not gonna insult it. I appreciate that you're here with the wine. So where we left off was the Civil War. Okay, Civil War, which was initiated. This was the next. Well, I'll answer this question first. Do you think Miller's bad? Of course, no. I don't think Miller's bad. Miller is definitely not bad. Okay. As a rule, anybody who's acting whatever in the Trump administration is good. But Chris Miller was in special operations. They're fiercely loyal, fiercely loyal individuals. And we were thinking that maybe Pence was good because he gave a pretty rousing speech, and which is a pretty bullshit reason, to be honest. But you could kind of feel a little bit of different energy maybe from him. And then you had that whole statement with Chris Miller about Pence, about how Pence had done all this stuff behind the scenes. Now Thomas Wichter says that this was an indication that Pence was leading a whole operation while Trump was involved with other things, and that's why Miller said this stuff. Now, other people have said that that Miller was trolling Pence. Basically, I've learned a lot from you, right? I've learned a lot from you. Really, thank you for your leadership. I've learned a lot from you. And Pence didn't look like he responded like he understood what was going on. He didn't really react, I think, is a better way to put it. He didn't really react. So who knows? So we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen with it. But we can trust Miller, no doubt. We can trust Miller. Guys, I said this before. The answer, the reason why we, how do I put this? Actually, what was I trying to say here? The reason why we know that Trump brings people who are like this, people who are traitors close to him, is because you need to understand what your enemy is doing. Okay? You need to understand what your enemy is doing. And you also need to make sure your enemy doesn't understand what you're doing. And the best way to do that is to have enemy agents close to you that are enemy agents. Because you can feed them disinfo. You can feed them disinfo all the time. That's why people are like, they look at the media and they're like, media reports that this stuff is going on in the Trump administration. Well, that's disinfo sent to the media through these people. It's either sent deliberately to the media or it's sent through people that Trump knows are, bad news. And I'm not saying that this has been perfect. I'm not saying there haven't been some mistakes. I don't know if there have been some mistakes or not. I'm sure there had to have been some mistakes. I mean, people make mistakes, right? But on a fundamental level, there has not really been mistakes. I think if you have any sort of, I'll give you an example of like what I think is a real indication of a mistake would be Scaramucci, right? Scaramucci came in, and then Scaramucci was fired like a week later. And why I know that Scaramucci is probably a mistake is because Scaramucci didn't add any value. There's no tangible benefit to Trump of the existence of Scaramucci in the administration. But also, Scaramucci was gone very, very quickly. And so that would give me an indication that Scaramucci maybe had them fooled. He got brought in. They figured it out pretty quickly. They dealt with it. I'm just kind of using my own sort of judgment here. But having somebody in the administration like Mark Meadows, first off, we don't even know how true some of these reports are. We don't know, for instance, okay, let's say Pence is bad, right? Let's say Pence is bad. Let's talk about this. Let's say Pence is bad. But if Pence is really a double agent and the cabal thinks that he's on their team, because he got a letter at the funeral like Bush, Obama, Clinton, then wouldn't it be good to have somebody who has an enormous amount of credibility in speaking the truth of the Trump administration, like Lin Wood, go out, be his attack dog self, and say that Pence needs to go? Wouldn't that be good? I'm not saying that we just don't really fucking know. We don't know, because that's the nature of the deception, and it's brilliant. It's a fucking mess, and you have to trust your heart in the outcome, because you can get really pulled around in the noise here. You have to get pulled around the noise. But yeah, you keep people close to you in the administration because you can feed them disinfo, and you also can find out from what they advise what the cabal wants. Right? For instance, we know if the FBI says something that we can know that probably the opposite happened. So if someone Trump knows is a mole goes and advises Trump to do certain things, he can know that the other thing is what they don't want. And so he can plan behind the scenes with people who he trusts better to execute that outcome. You can't do this kind of stuff if you're a pussy. You can't do it if you don't really have a high threshold of tension. And look, we're exhausted a little in a certain sense. I mean, I'm still enjoying this stuff, but most people are. But I mean, I'm not going to pretend like I want this to keep going on anymore. Like, I'm really happy to see the cabal go at this point. I'm a little bit tired of the game. I have plenty of juice in me to continue to fight, but I think we all want it to happen, right? Trump has the highest tension threshold of anybody I've ever witnessed in my life. I don't think that there's a single man on earth who can hold more tension than Donald Trump. And when you're executing this kind of thing, look at this, right? Look at who's flipped since the 14th. We have now McConnell. We know that McConnell and a bunch of Republican senators are now come out in the open as being anti-Trump, part of the cabal, don't want to fight on the 6th. Trump would not have been able to have smoked him out unless he had this level of tension control. But he's willing to let it go all the way till the very, very end. So let's see here. Let's see. Cerno loves Scaramucci. Yeah, I'm sure he does. They're a very similar archetype, aren't they? Grifter type. Cerno wanted Trump to put him in the administration. But why would you put someone like Cerno in the administration when they're obsessed with self-aggrandizement? Frankly, I think it's one of the reasons why, and this is not a comparison between the two men on a deep level, but Bannon left, right? Because Bannon is a good man, but Bannon is not going to. Bannon wants to be up in the front lines. He wants to create some chaos, like Alex Jones. Like, these people, you can't have loud attention-seeking people in the Trump White House. You can't do it. Trump's the only person who's allowed to do that, and he does that stuff in large sense for disinfo purposes. Okay? Trump is the only one who can be loud and throw out whatever fucking things he wants to do in the Trump White House. He's the only one who can do it. The people who really do things in the Trump White House behind the scenes are people like Ezra Cohen Watwick, who you have like 2 pictures of. Right? You had like a picture of Ezra Cohen Watwick until this year. You had like almost no pictures of him. Okay? You have people like Chris Miller, people who are under the radar. Okay? Those are the people like General Flynn, who don't talk. This is an intelligence operation presidency. Trump is a special operations president. I think Thomas Wichter said that. And he is crazy, but he's right about this. He's right about this. I don't know that he's right about Pence or these kind of things, because Wichter doesn't see the full truth of Q, but Wichter understands intelligence operations. He gets that way better, and that's why Wichter is, even if he misses some big picture constructs, he understands how to read between the lines with these things. Like, this is a special operations presidency. Nothing that you see is what's real, which is why we seem crazy to most people, because we detect the deeper fundamental patterns. We feel into it, and we can see this is a trajectory. This is what they're building towards. But if you pick a single action, it's like, well, what's going to happen now? The encirclement will all come together, and it's happening. You can feel it now. We're really in the end stages, guys. We're in the end stages. End stages, I mean, before things get out in the open. So Trump stays grounded because Trump has a deep background in energy and alchemy. So he understands that stuff. He understands the uses of energy, mentored by Norman Vincent Peale. But beyond that, Trump is getting help. He's getting help, and I want to make this is probably a good segue. Let me just check some of these things before. Let me just check some of these things before I go into it. Salmon's part of the White House team. All right, I'm going to talk about Barron. I'm actually going to save the second half of American history for later, because I want to talk about something else that's been on my mind. It's also esoteric, okay? We'll return to the American history, Civil War after. Dan Bongino is a good guy, but I mean, you know, there's a lot of financial investment in talking. I'll just say I don't really trust Parler. Look, I think that Gab is a place where a lot of the refuse of the right movement comes to. A lot of the refuse of the right movement goes to Gab. That said, Gab is not a co-opted space. Andrew Torba, I mean, I give him respect for what he's done. He doesn't make money off of Gab. It's really just no, I don't look at Royce's stuff. I never really looked at it to begin with, to be honest. It was never an influence for me. And, you know, Royce's gone Heartiste, right? Chateau Heartiste, gone like full on white nationalist stuff. And it's just not really my, you know, look, I'm not somebody who denies like racial stuff. I'm very aware of DNA differences. I'm very aware of different cultural differences. I'm also very aware of psychological programming that emphasizes differences. I don't like shit that tries to play groups against each other. I don't like that. I don't think it's positive. I don't think it's productive. It's low vibration shit. I've never met a racist. I've never met a racist who has a good vibration. I've never met it. I mean, I think we can appreciate that we're different without having to hate each other. Like, I think we can do that for sure. And I've talked about this before. Minority groups have been really the most abused by the psyops. I mean, we may see a very different world when this is all over. So I always try to be positive and try to keep that together. But I do respect, you know, I like the like legit diversity. I don't like the sort of genetic, like, you know, let's homogenize everything. And frankly, that's like a lot. There are plenty of minority groups who don't want that either. which is good because you want to preserve your own culture. I think that's what makes the world great, is having your own culture. But yeah, Bongino, I don't think he's a bad person. I just, he's on the inside, right? He's a commentator, and a big scale commentator. Parler, the push by the people that pushed it was always suspect to me. It was always suspect. And I think it's been confirmed. Ron, Code Monkey, like pure guy. Yeah, said it himself. He called out that it was, easy to co-opt, right? Or your account can be co-opted, your information. You have to give your social security number. Fuck that shit. Fuck that. It's ridiculous. Couldn't troll in it. What's the point? It's not a real free speech platform. Also, all people who are telling you to go there were mostly people who are telling you to give up in general, right? They're all kind of like, they create these things to trap people again. So like you leave Fox, you go to Newsmax, then you get trapped again in Newsmax. It's just the usual kind of shit that they pull. So I can tell you that Gab is a legitimate free speech platform, and I do check Gab now because there's a couple people who have been banned from Twitter, and I'll check them on Gab. I don't do anything with Parler. No interest in joining Parler. Not going to do it. Fuck that stuff. Fuck it. So I'm not going to talk about crypto. I don't know anything about crypto. So, all right. I'm going to have to go soon because dinner's coming. But I do want to talk about this before we go. All right. Just so real quick. We asked, how does Trump know these things? Well, we know he has looking glass technology, but there's more than that. Okay. This fight on Earth has been going on for a very long time. I'm going to give, I think, probably an entire show. It's going to be special. It's just going to be talking about what I know about aliens and the history of Earth on a galactic level. But I want to leave you guys with some food for thought on these things. We are being liberated right now by a group called the Galactic Federation. Okay, it's a galactic federation. Remember Star Trek, Star Trek, the Federation, right? Earth joins the Federation. The Galactic Federation is the real name, and they are a group of different races across the galaxy, and I think perhaps into the Andromeda galaxy as well, the neighboring galaxy. And they have been on a mission to liberate us, basically. They've wanted to do it for a long time. It's a complicated history on this planet. It's a complicated history, but we've been basically under the control of what, from what I've understood, is called the Sicarian Empire, which is a reptilian empire. And not every reptilian's evil, but many of them have gone that dark path. And the upper leadership is left. So we're dealing with their lackeys. Basically, the Galactic Federation's already won. They've already won the planet for us. Okay? They've already won the planet for us. The other group that's been kind of involved with the Sicarian Empire has been the Orion Alliance, which is a bunch of grays, basically. Those are little gray men, right? They're the ones who do a lot of experiments on humans. And they're sort of like bad actors that have been working in tandem. Different group than the reptiles, but kind of working together, at least for the purposes on Earth. The Federation has been doing a lot to try to liberate this planet. And a lot of them have died in the process of trying to liberate this planet. A lot of the stuff that you've heard about with the tunnels, what's been going on in the underground tunnels. We've had elite levels of special operations, which, by the way, guys, Delta Force, this is something I heard recently. Delta Force, they put special operations under food and sleep deprivation because it activates all sorts of things in your brain, and basically, delta waves, etc. It helps your psychoactive capabilities. Michael Jaco, who I will be actually working with soon. just got some private coaching from Michael Jaco, who's former CIA, SEAL Team 6. Michael Jaco has talked about this, how you're actually able to, you have remote viewing capability. I mean, they train you in these advanced special operations to be like, you can psychically see that there's a bomb around the corner. Look, this is not an insult against ayahuasca, but you guys just can't do shortcuts to this stuff. You can't do shortcuts. I think that ayahuasca can help heal, but you just can't take drugs and raise your consciousness permanently. A drug can help you to open things up. It can also open you up to spiritual attack if you're not developed enough. So I would look at ayahuasca as you would look at any other drug, but you have to interpret it from a psychic, astral sort of capability, that if you don't address it properly, if you don't use it in the proper context, you just allow yourself to be infiltrated. And I'm gonna go on a limb here and tell you something. I think that the reason that Mike Cernovich is fucked up is because I think he did a lot of psychedelics. I think that's part of it. And a lot of psychedelics, and I think he's fucked up his mind because he doesn't understand anything anymore. It's very clear he doesn't understand anything. He's actually, you can understand he's a stupider person than he used to be. So I don't know if that's the only I don't think his consciousness was raised. I think he has this perception that his consciousness was raised because he saw some shit. But he's actually a stupider person than he used to be. Yeah, is why I didn't help Trump in 2020. That's a great example of what happens when you enter into a realm. You can have an entity tell you something and mess you up. Entity can tell you something that's actually not good for you. And Goldman's really smart about this. Goldman's very wise and has done ayahuasca and understands the distinction between this stuff, right? He understands how your mind can be hijacked in that space. He also understands that there are good entities there, but that's not the same thing as God, right? It's not the same thing as source consciousness. So, look, just to close this stuff up, and we will do a full episode on all these different entities and stuff, but the Pleiadians are a major part of the Galactic Federation. Okay, the Pleiadians are a massive part of the Galactic Federation, especially from a military perspective. They do a lot of the military operations, and the Pleiadians are Nordics. Okay, Nordic looking. And I wanted to say this is that I've heard some of their language, and it's so fucking similar to Elvish, and it just like tripped a wire. I had kind of thought this before, but it really like tripped a serious wire here. Northern Europe was Pleiadian colonies because there was a period of Earth where different parts of Earth were colonized by different groups. Actually, to be honest, Atlantis was Nordic, was a Pleiadian colony that fell. Okay, it got corrupted. Atlantis was Numenor. The Lord of the Rings is truth. Tolkien was telling you the truth in allegory. He was telling you the truth in allegory. Okay? You guys understand that? He was telling you the truth in allegory. It was true. The fall of Numenor, there were battles in the first age. There were battles in the first age, right? And I don't know if this related to the destruction of Tiamat, which is the planet that is the asteroid belt that some people have called it Marduk as well, Tiamat Marduk. It blew up. It was destroyed, allegedly by Death Star. I'm not fucking with you here. Allegedly by Death Star. And it wiped off the atmosphere of Mars, which is why Mars has no atmosphere today, right? Always very interesting that a planet so far out would have no atmosphere. It's because it got wiped out from the blast of Tiamat Marduk. Okay? So I don't know if it's allegory for that, but let's just talk about this. I'm gonna leave in we're like 5 minutes left. Okay, we gotta go. I gotta go eat. You had, as a result, there were men who, humans. Okay, let's talk about first off the Pleiadians. As far as I can understand, live forever. As far as I can understand, live forever. They're immortal. Of course, they can be killed, but they're immortal. and they look like the elves. They have the same sort of high consciousness, alignment with nature, ability to create, magic and healing, right? That the elves have. Then you have men, and there's a big controversy about men because are men good or men bad? The hearts of men are easily corrupted. And many men fought against with the reptilians, the orcs, right? The orcs. Many men fought with the orcs against the Pleiadians. Okay? And some did not. Some fought with the Pleiadians. And what were they granted with? They were granted with wisdom from the elves, and they were granted with a long lifetime, modified DNA. But they still died. And as time went on, they became corrupted. They became corrupted. And that was the fall of Atlantis, was the corruption of Atlantis. And you can understand this, that they could never go. Remember how the elves could always sail across the endless sea? The endless sea, right? Space. The elves could always sail across the endless sea to go to Valinor, where only the elves could go. The only exception to that being if you got on a boat with the elves, and then you could go to Valinor, right? Now, maybe that's a elvish, Pleiadian spacecraft could take them to the homeworld of Tegenta in the Pleiades constellation. Maybe that's what it was. But the men of Atlantis were given all this technology, but they weren't allowed to go to Tegenta. Maybe that was it. That was why they were blocked. They could go to a trading outpost, an island, right? Probably a planet. They couldn't go to Tegenta. And they didn't like that because maybe they thought Tegenta was better. And so they were corrupted. And then Atlantis fell. But there were some men on Atlantis who knew it was going to fall, and they fled. And maybe they fled to Northern Europe. And maybe that was the men who would later fight in the Lord of the Rings, which we are experiencing right now. You understand this? I'm getting energy from this. It's legit. We are living out the Lord of the Rings. Tolkien was a prophet, and he was explaining this. This is what was going to happen. Okay, in a certain sense, on a certain energetic sense, we are going through this right now. Who is the king who had to be chosen? Who is the king who had to step up to who was from a line and had been hidden throughout history, and who had to accept the throne, and who hid for years from accepting the throne? Yeah. Is JFK Jr. Frodo? Is JFK Jr. Frodo? I'm getting energy when I say that, man. I'm getting energy when I say that. I'm actually getting a lot of energy when I've never said that before. Trump is Aragorn, but is JFK Jr. I say that and I get a lot of shit. I gotta tell you guys this. I don't know. We don't know where JFK Jr. is. He had to go on a mission. What is he doing? Anyway, food for thought. Salmon's Gandalf. Salmon's Gandalf. All right, guys. I love you. We will talk. All right. I'll see you.